Hello and welcome to this edition of the Beacon Hill Report. I'm Jim Marshall of the New Bedford Cable Network, and our guest this time is State Representative Paul Schmid. Another appearance on the program. Thanks for coming in again. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure to be on with you, Jim.
And lots of things going on up in Beacon Hill, and as we hit the fall season now, it's you guys are starting to get back in the swing of things, I know. And
well, we hope to. Right.
We always ask the reps when they come in, just sort of where does Beacon Hill stand right now when it comes to COVID?
Sure.
You're still doing the meetings via Zoom.
Well, committee hearings are still happening via Zoom.
Yeah.
And I think that is one piece of COVID that is probably, a lot of people hope that will be carried forward, because giving citizens the opportunity to speak on bills from their home rather than making that trip to Boston. Who the heck wants to devote a day to going up to speak? Mm-hmm. Not everybody, but if they can do it via Zoom, that really makes a difference. So I think a lot of people are hoping that we'll continue that at least on a hybrid basis. But yeah, committee hearings via Zoom, voting remotely.
Remotely, yeah.
Yeah.
I know that one of the things you said last time too, though, with regards to this, is one of the negative things about the Zoom meetings is your relationships with your colleagues, in that you were saying the last time you were here, like, you don't have that personal relationship. And I think you were saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, like you could walk down the hall with somebody and sort of get a bill through or talk about something that
True.
You don't have that opportunity right now because of the situation.
True, and that's what so many of us are really looking forward to, getting back to Beacon Hill. But you may have read in the State House News just a couple of days ago that there are some reps who do not want to state whether they have been vaccinated. And the Speaker, I think quite rightly, is very concerned about putting us all in the chamber,
right,
where we're pretty close, 160 of us plus staff, not knowing whether the person sitting right next to you
right.
has been vaccinated. So do we all wear masks as we speak? It's
tough. It's a difficult thing. Are staff back yet?
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, we go up from time to time to our offices just to check on things and get a file or something. But officially, we're not back. And officially, the State House is not open.
I would imagine one of the good things, though, is that, and knowing you as I do, you've had a lot of time to be in the district and just look at and see and really study some of the issues that are important to you as well,
So
wherever
true.
you are.
So true, Jim. Instead of spending that 4 hours a day commuting
Right.
to Boston, that gives us 4 hours in the district, and that's been such a bright side to this all. More time with our constituents. Yeah, I love it.
One of the things that we were talking about, I think, last time too, is we looked at the COVID update, is talking about the COVID, the mandates and what have you. And I know the legislature was looking to have some say down the road as to what's going to happen. They don't want the governor to have, not just Governor Baker, but in general, they want to have a say in what's going on.
Yes. Yeah, and actually, we are having ARPA meetings going on right now to be sure that we've heard from all parts of the Commonwealth about what should be our priorities. And believe me, everybody's got a priority. So we think it's important for us to spend the time listening and then to have a say in where the money goes.
Generically, do you have a thought as to like some of, I don't want to say your specific priorities, but are you looking at anything in particular that you think, well, this has to be in there?
Well, to me, housing is our biggest issue right now, and I would like to see ARPA money go towards improving our housing stock.
You and I were talking about off camera about housing, and I was mentioning how Carl Alves was in the studio a couple weeks ago. It's talking about a 2-bedroom apartment on Dean Street going for $1,800 rent-wise. But your district is unique because you represent Westport, some would say a rural community, and you also represent the city. Is housing the same, the situation in housing the same in the smaller towns versus the cities as well?
Totally, Jim.
Is it?
In Westport, we have so many Westporters who maybe one of their spouses passed away, the kids are no longer in the house. Maintaining that house is more difficult now. Where do they go? They want to stay, they want to age in their community, be it the north end of New Bedford or the north end of Westport. But finding affordable housing is very difficult. We created 50 units in Westport on Route 177 and Route 6 just 2 years ago. There's 600 people on the waiting list now.
Wow.
And as we were talking before, we've worked so hard as a delegation to improve the economy here, and things are definitely trending up. We've worked hard to bring South Coast Rail down. That is going to happen. We're improving educational results, and so there's the real estate market is increasing, which if you're a homeowner is wonderful. But if you're a renter, as you've just said, a 2-bedroom apartment for $1,800, not looking over the ocean or anything, it's very hard, and we've got to make sure that we can keep people in New Bedford who want to stay here.
Because the interesting thing too is while the rents have gone up, it's not as though pay or salaries have gone up for people too. And I know that's the same whether it's Westport or New Bedford.
Yeah.
So the economy is not the same when it comes to housing versus salaries.
Yeah, true. So figuring this out and making sure that everybody has a place to call home in New Bedford is, I think, one of our greatest challenges for the future. And if we can use some of that American Rescue money to improve our housing, if we can use some of the potential infrastructure money, whatever they pass, for that purpose, I think those are the important things we need to do for New Bedford's future.
When you look at housing, is it, for example, in Westport, is it housing? Is it apartments? I mean, because I think there are communities that don't do that, or I'm not saying don't, but it's harder to put an apartment complex in a Westport versus even a New Bedford.
Yeah.
So is that accurate? And is that right?
Of course, part of the problem, Jim, is that we don't have water and sewer.
Right. Yeah.
So that's a big infrastructure investment that you have to make to have an apartment unit. And by the way, we're working on extending Fall River water and sewer down Route 6 with some of this infrastructure money. And that would really make a difference for being able to upgrade the commercial sites along Route 6 and bringing in affordable housing. So that is a great potential. But in addition, zoning is hard in a place like Westport or Freetown. We're kind of built on one family zoning.
Right.
And it's very difficult, for instance, to put in an in-law unit.
Just in addition to an existing house?
In existing to in addition to an existing house. So we need to work on zoning issues in our rural communities to make it easier.
Something I'm curious about, and I know that you're totally passionate about, is farming.
You got that right.
But I'm curious as to how farming has fared during COVID. I would imagine that workers have to have been the lack of workers has to have been an issue. How are they handling it? Are they surviving or struggling?
Well, you're right. Getting everybody, every business, every
Correct.
small business is saying, whether you're a restaurant or in the printing business or you're raising green peppers, you're finding it very hard to get help. And farmers are pretty resourceful people, and they just work a couple more hours a day, and somehow they make it happen. But I think that agriculture in general has really stepped up during COVID and been part of the food resiliency efforts that have gone on all around the Commonwealth.
I worry. I mean, I've seen that obviously the farmers across the state have donated a lot of food to food banks and what have you. Yeah. I sit here on the other side and say, that's tremendously nice of them, but are financially they're going to be okay to do it again next year so that they can survive? I mean, because if you don't have the farmers, there's no food being grown in the country.
Well, farmers markets, and I was just at the one up in Buttonwood Park last month. Commissioner LeBeau came down. Farmers markets really make a difference for farmers because they're able to get full retail for their efforts rather than having to sell as a commodity for half of retail. So farmers markets are really helping the farmers. And we have this program, the Healthy Incentives Program, the HIP program, which gives folks who have access to SNAP benefits, it gives them an extra $40 or $50 every month to spend at a farmer's market. So you can buy local, healthy food and do good things for your family and stretch your food dollar. So
we were talking with State
great help.
Yeah, exactly. We were talking with State Representative Paul Schmid here. Big issue that came up, which you and I were talking about when you first walked in. The census came out. Numbers are up in New Bedford. I think actually everywhere the numbers are up in
South Coast generally.
Southeastern Mass. Yeah. And with that comes redistricting, which is, I guess the committees are meeting or at least looking at it right now.
Oh, they're probably reaching final decisions. We should hear early in October.
Because you and I were saying too that the figures aren't. I don't think the figures are official yet. We haven't seen the final numbers, right, from the census.
We've seen the preliminary numbers,
right,
and we hope that the final numbers follow what we've seen on an unofficial basis.
Can you tell us what you know? How does redistricting work? What's the process? You said you have a say in your district.
Yes.
Which. And I've said it before, I think you have one of the most unique districts around, which has got to be exciting for you because on one hand you're dealing with Freetown and Westport, and the other hand you're dealing with New Bedford.
Yeah,
so
and I'm really honored to represent the north end of New Bedford. So I told the chairman of the redistricting committee, Mike Moran, I said, please, I want to keep Ward 1 Precinct C, D, and E, because I love the north end of New Bedford. I love around Sassaquin Pond, down Church and Phillips.
But as you said too, and I think people should know this too, I mean, you've said before that even though you represent Ward 1, I mean, every decision that's made in New Bedford impacts, you look at it as the whole city, not just Ward 1.
I sure try to.
The harbor is important to you, and the South End is important, which is, Chris Markey says the same thing. It's like, you may just because you've got a little latch in there now, the whole city is important, which is great.
Well, a good example is that the city is opening a new technology park in Chris Markey's district of New Bedford. that's certainly going to bring jobs to the north end of New Bedford. So of course I'm supportive of the mayor's efforts on that, and that's the waterfront. Tony Cabral, Chris, Bill Strauss, very important to them, but equally important to the north end of New Bedford.
Because it all means jobs too. I mean, it all means, if something good in New Bedford is going to be good in Westport or Freetown or anything, and it's kind of like a one big circle anyway.
So you asked how districts are created.
Correct.
And they try to have, of course, we have to have a certain population base. And I think that the number for state reps will be something like 45,000. So we have to have a population, we have to represent a population of about 45,000. And the districts should be compact as much as possible. And it should be fair to make sure that each group of people are represented.
And it seems like, based on the preliminary numbers, that Western Massachusetts is going, it seems as though districts are going to be more, I don't want to say created more, but there's going to be more in the Eastern Mass side or Southeastern Mass side too than in the Western Mass. Like Western Mass, it seems lost population.
Yes, that's true.
So those districts are going to be...
They have to be expanded eastward.
Correct.
Yes.
And like you said, Southeastern Mass certainly did grow. I mean, Fall River grew too.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's interesting. It's good that you guys have a say in your own district, but I can't imagine how they decide, the committee or whatever decides, well, here's what we're going to do.
Yeah, so the districts redistricting will affect the state reps, the state senators, and of course it'll affect our congressional districts.
And it's interesting, when you said 45,000, it used to be, as I recall, like 35,000 or something like that. So it has, the number for your district has gone up population-wise.
Yes.
Which means it's going to expand anyway for you. One way or the other, you're going to go up a little bit.
Well, Massachusetts was kind of an outlier amongst the New England states that over the last 10 years, our population did grow. And so we haven't had to lose a congressional seat the way we did 10 years ago, and we hope that that keeps everybody in place.
Talk about, and I guess talk politics for a second here.
Oh boy.
In that the more, there are 5 people that represent New Bedford, have a piece of New Bedford. This area seems to be growing in population. How much does that impact when you're trying to get legislation or something through up in Beacon Hill? It used to be, it's funny, I remember the story, if you're not in the 495 belt, you're fighting the Boston reps.
Sure, and that still goes on.
But the way this looks now, does it give you more clout up on Beacon Hill when you're looking at legislation?
Well, there's been some discussion in the last couple of months about, New Bedford is represented by 5 state reps. Would it be better if it was only represented by 3? I think it's all about numbers up in the State House, and I think to have 5 people fighting for New Bedford, I think helps New Bedford. And I think the kinds of things you've seen go on in New Bedford, the investment in the harbor, the new schools, the investment in the roads. I think that reflects the fact that having 5 people represent New Bedford is a good thing. So.
And it's interesting too because the reps on the Cape, as I remember, the reps on the Cape would align with the reps in Southeastern Mass because again, you're all trying to get. I'll help you with your bill, you help me with my bill because you're still competing for that, in a sense, Boston money, the Boston corridor money.
Yes. It's been going on for years,
right.
And it still goes on, and we got a battle.
And that population's grown too on the Cape.
Yes.
And really throughout, like you said, Eastern Mass. So within that 495 belt, that's a good thing for you guys, that there's more people here. You got to pay attention to us, I guess, is the bottom line.
And we feel that the old days of South Coast not getting any attention, I think things have changed. I've got to say that I think the governor, lieutenant governor, have spent a lot of time down here, and we respect that, and I think we've benefited by it. So we got to keep that going.
One of the things we touched upon briefly was you touched upon the MBTA. It's going to happen down here. You and I were talking off air because it just came across the news that this morning, and you saw the headline, and I heard a brief report. But the MBTA, because there's lack of a ridership because of COVID, that financially they're going to have issues in a couple of years.
Yes.
But we're still. You've still said, and I know the other reps have said, listen, the train's coming. There's no doubt about that. And I think a lot of people are excited about that. But your initial reaction, I know you don't have any details right now, but the fact that the MBTA, which always seems to have financial issues, is facing a shortfall in a couple of years because of lack of ridership.
Yeah, and what we got to make sure down here is that funding difficulties for the T do not affect CERTA. And public transportation here on the South Coast is so important. And we've talked about that we just don't have anywhere near equivalent service to what they have around Boston. Our service drops off on weekends. We need it to go further in the night so that people working the second shift can get home. And it's just a constant battle to make sure that our regional transportation authorities, what we call the RTAs, get equivalent funding to the T. So that's what we're really going to be on the alert for, is the T. Okay, T's having problems. Well, by the way, our public transportation ridership down here is off a little bit also. Mm-hmm. But we can't let those problems in Boston affect our wonderful CERTA network.
But the interesting thing is, when I heard that about the MBTA, the only thing I'm thinking is it's got to be like that in all the big cities or in region. All transit right now, because of COVID, it's been hurt. But you would think that it's gonna have to bounce back. Better than I. The traffic going to Boston right now is starting to increase. People are going back to work.
Traffic back into Boston, Jim, is pretty much back to pre-COVID levels. Maybe not as many people are actually working in Boston, but more people are driving and not taking the public transportation, and that's what's affecting the T.
So when you look at the regional transit, CERTA right now, and you see that, okay, well, because you look at the buses and they're not full, nor can they be full because of COVID, do you have to make the case that, listen, it's a COVID thing right now?
Totally.
We're going to get back, but do people making the decisions, are they going to hear that message? Because I'm sure you're not the only one that's saying. I'm sure the people in Western Mass are saying the same thing, and the North Shore and everything.
Sure. We all, public transportation is just a basic building block for the economy. So we're going to be making that case that, ridership is off, but it's off for a good reason. And by the way, I just got to put in a good word for our CERTA drivers who have really, we talk about the nurses and the grocery store workers and so on. Talk about the drivers who were there for everybody day after day. They are truly frontline workers, and we appreciate what they've done. So,
we got about 5 minutes left here. I want to give you a chance to talk about some of the things that you've been plugging along. We've talked about some of the bigger things that make the news headlines, but what are some of the things that you're looking at right now, especially while you've been back in the district because of COVID?
Sure. Well, I have been really working on sort of the area where agriculture and food come together in cities like New Bedford and Fall River. And we're very lucky. The school system has a wonderful head of food preparation now who's really committed to sourcing locally. And we want to support that, and we want to make it possible for kids, many of whom maybe are getting their only meal of the day at breakfast and at lunch at the schools. We want to make sure that they're eating healthy food and healthy local food. So we've been really working on making it possible for districts, schools like New Bedford to be able to source locally, and that helps health outcomes in New Bedford, and of course it helps our local farmers.
What's the reaction you get from the kids and from parents? You were just talking, you were at the farmers market too a couple weeks ago. I mean,
Jim, they love it. People are recognizing that buying carrots, beets, lettuce, and preparing dinners yourself.
I don't know about beets.
Is such. I'm with you on beets. My wife loves to grow beets.
I don't know about beets.
But
if beets were banished, I'd be okay. I'll tell you right now.
When picking between a carrot and a beet, I'll take that carrot every day. But look, whether it's a carrot or a beet or whatever it is, if it's picked today and served today, it's so much better for you. And people are recognizing that it's a wonderful source, a farmer's market.
I know you go to the schools in the district, and it must be nice to see the kids back in school, just in general now, because for this year after last year.
Oh, we all want it, don't we?
Yeah. And Westport's got the new school opening. If it hasn't opened already.
The new school is open. They had a few transportation glitches for drop-off and pickup. Fall River has a new Durfee High. And these schools are so important to showing the kids how much we appreciate and value education.
Have you heard from parents, and I'm sure you have, about the whole safety for COVID and what have you right now? And the schools seem to be doing the best they can with what they have. Let's put it that way.
So of course masks are mandated, and schools are superintendents are very happy that the state has taken that position, because it kind of takes them off the hook. It's a pretty contentious subject.
And it's 3 feet, I think, right now, if I'm not mistaken. The kids have to be 3 feet apart in the classrooms versus the 6 feet that they used to be.
And we're going to try our best to keep windows open and fresh air, because we know that that's really important. So we're going to do everything we can to make sure that the kids are in school. That's where education goes on.
Sounds good. It's good seeing you again.
Jim, always nice to be.
Appreciate it.
Oh, I love being on with you.
We'll be in a couple of months. We'll have you back in again.
Well, by that time, the new districts should be sorted out, and we should be somewhere in the winter. So,
well, it's interesting too, just on the aside, that there's been a lot of meetings and committee meetings that, because we run them here at Cable Access, there's been a lot going on Beacon Hill the last few weeks, actually.
Been very busy. Committees are back at it, and a lot of opportunity for constituents to speak about bills. That's what it's all about, listening to constituents. Thanks, Jim.
We will see you again. That's going to do it for this edition of a Beacon Hill Report. I'm Jim Marshall, the New Bedford Cable Network. My thanks to Representative Paul Schmid. We will see you again soon. Thanks for watching.